Okay. Roll call. We are all in attendance, save one. Member Langer phoned, is excused absence this evening. A loss in his family. And for those inclined, if you can offer your thoughts and prayers for the Langer family, it would be appreciated. We were properly noticed. Thank you, Kate, for a meeting this evening. And we're going to roll right on through to facility and referendum report, rough draft conceptual new building location.
All right. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you. Getting used to this new format.
We are.
So we wanted to give you all an update on where we are in the referendum process now that we have an approved referendum going forward to November. You want to go to slide 2. This is a graphic that we showed really early on. So I wanted to bring it back to the table as a reminder of where we are, where we've come to date over the past 11 months. We did a facility study that helped identify the issues on the campus. We then went through an exercise of programming and establishing the big idea solutions that then has translated into option development. This is really where we stop from an architectural perspective, as we've kind of ended what we can do to date without getting community approval. And so what we want to share with you essentially is a site plan that shows the feasibility study to date. It shows where the building is going to go on the site, how parking might work, and how circulation and flow and athletic fields are all compiled on the site. It's really as I said, a feasibility study to show what can happen. We as architects design buildings from the inside out, and that process is about seven months or so to even get to a realistic site plan. So what we're showing is not representative of what will be the final solution, but more an idea of what could be. We go to the next slide. To give you an example of this is our kind of most recent brand new high school that we did in Verona. And on the left, you will see the referendum graphic that was used in communications to illustrate to the community the scope of work and roughly what everyone was thinking in terms of ideas for the site. It showed athletics fields, where the building's located, some parking, where the main entry is located. And then on the right is ultimately what ended up in terms of the site plan. So a very different organization of site. And that is just because the process takes time to really vet all of the solutions. And that requires heavy engagement with the admin team and the board to vet through solution of what's best for the district. So we really can't do the kind of top-down approach of this is what the building is going to be. It requires the process associated with it to get to the final solution. So we have 2 graphics that we are going to be sharing publicly with the community. This first one is the existing campus, identifying what's on the campus in terms of buildings and athletic fields currently. And then the pink dashed line is roughly the area that we're anticipating where the new building will go. The exact shape, as mentioned, is to be determined. But through kind of this initial feasibility study process, we've determined that that is probably the best area for the building to go. It's most removed from neighbors and allows for kind of a consolidated, obviously, north portion of the campus that has the building and parking, and then south becomes focused on primarily athletics. But we've heard kind of in the community, people are having a hard time understanding how the current buildings will remain on site and the new building will be built. So we wanted to overlay the two to illustrate that the building can be built on the side of the existing buildings while school still goes on in the current north and south campuses. The disruption is to the athletic fields, which still needs to be worked out in terms of the logistics of how the soccer stadium and soccer practice fields will operate during construction. I think there's some thoughts about using the football field, potentially some other facilities, but those would be the things that would be the most disrupted during construction. So if we go to the next slide, this is representative of the overall master plan for the site. So like I mentioned, the building is located on the west portion of the site with exposure to Waukesha K. So there's some exposure to the community on the main thoroughfare. We started to consider how parent drop-off and pickup might work, creating kind of a singular directional loop with very long queuing lines to minimize the amount of traffic interference on the campus. We've also considered how students would walk about the site and making sure to separate both student parking and student flow from the building to the athletic fields after school, for example. We've also illustrated where that parent pickup and drop off loop, it would happen in the blue, and you can see in the arrows how directionally that would occur. So you could either enter the loop from K or from Arrowhead Drive, loop around to the entry, and then come back out to the south. In the current, you would exit towards North Avenue in the current entrance here to the South Campus. The northeast parking lot adjacent to the building is where students would park. That accommodates about 1,000 student parking spots. And then the parking lot that's within the loop and to the left of the building are visitor and staff parking. The yellow line represents where bus pickup and drop off would occur, which is intentionally separated from parent pickup and drop off to separate those modes of transportation right there. And then the soccer fields move over to the east of the site. So you see 2 practice fields and then a soccer stadium. And those are the only athletics that really remain on North Campus, displacing where they were previously, essentially. And then where the current South Campus is, becomes lacrosse fields. We've also looked at moving the tennis courts, which I think is a long time coming project to separate the tennis and parking from the primary drive. So we're indicating that on the site plan as well. And then there are a couple of nuances to the site, numbers 19 and 18. So the idea that Arrowhead Drive currently divides the campus from north to south, and is the mode, or it is the path in which families that live in Evelyn Court or this whole subdivision here, they have to exit their houses through Arrowhead Drive. So we've had some discussions, and we're reaching out to the town of Merton to see what the feasibility of this is. But if we provide number 18, which is an extension road to Evelyn Court, we are looking into what the feasibility of closing Arrowhead Drive for that portion would be to allow free flow of traffic from the building to the athletic fields after school. Either way, it's not interfering with the parent pickup and drop off loop, but there would be the possibility that family or, people who live in those homes are traveling that road. So that could also help. I would imagine that those houses would be in favor of this so that they don't have to leave through campus to get out. But that's something that we're going to work through with the town of Merton, kind of in the background here.
Quite honestly, something to think about regardless of what happens with the road.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's been a conversation for years. And then if you go to the next slide, this is just showing that here's where we are today, or for November of 24, where we're the referendum. We had to a past referendum. This is kind of just a starting point, and then May 2025 we'll be back. I'm sure we'll have many more points of engagement with you all to develop what comes next, but you'll see kind of a more detailed site plan like the Verona example.
Like the optimism.
Yeah,
Yes,
there we go.
when it
I mean,
happens. Manifest.
Have we had civil engineers look at this in terms of stormwater management?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've engaged Kapoor, who's worked on the campus for years. And so they evaluated what we're showing in the kind of white hatch line is the idea that that's where stormwater management would occur. So they validated that we're showing approximately the right amount, and it's in the right location in terms of the low points of the site. Obviously, the admin team has communicated to us that there's several drainage issues here on South Campus right in that lower region, that kind of loop around that lacrosse field, and then there's another low point over by the soccer stadium. So capturing those natural areas. And then right now we're kind of looping the bus around a natural, it's not a wetland, but it's an area that collects water right now. So we've kept that one as is. Depending on how the building actually shakes out, that may or may not remain intact. We're not required to leave it as is. We could build over it, parking, reconfigure it in a way, but for now we're showing it as is and kind of looping the bus around it.
That's enough for all the impervious that we're creating.
That's what Core has validated.
Some ways I would think it might be less.
Less
Because
impervious.
we're going up vertically with the building, so we don't have to have those huge footprints in the two schools. So
Yeah.
you're getting more parking, so it could be
Yeah.
close to the wash, but I asked the same question and they were assured me it wouldn't be an issue.
Katie, how does the volume of parking from this compare to what we currently have?
Great question. So we have about 800 spots more than what we currently have on campus. So I think it's
What do we have currently have?
1379, and then this is showing about 2150 net increase. And obviously it's consolidated in the areas where it's appropriate. So student parking is next to the building. There's a big athletics parking next to, kind of the L shape around the ball and the top.
So what is the beginning and end timeline, remind me, with all the, of building the school, but also demolition of two existing campuses? What would it be?
I think our Charlie and Ryan talk a little bit better to the design and construction schedule.
So ultimately, the new building will be open for the 2020 school year.
And what about like all the other buildings after you demo and put, so we're at like 100%.
So the summer of 2028 extending into about October. We'll see a lot of site work going on. In order to open up for that school year, to start at the north, south. So that summer, as soon as the school year ends, the demolition would start with the existing buildings. So it'd be a very busy summer.
So I know that building a new building and how it's offset like this, the plan is that classes at school can operate, continue basically as usual.
Mhm.
But what has been your experience with a building of this size going on? Is there kind of, it has to be incredibly noisy. Is that disruptive? Is it interrupting classes? Any issues that you have experienced?
When we did it in Greenfield, we built a new academic building while the old one was being used, literally right next to it, and never any issues. Yes, there's noise, but there's always noise. And so it really went off without a hitch.
It doesn't disrupt anything really, right? Okay.
If I can add to that too, the floor plan of North Campus is such that a lot of the athletics, the pool, is on that west side of the building there, where a lot of the core curriculars on the east side. So just being, from a proximity standpoint, a lot of the kind of heads down focus, teacher teaching is on the east side of the building. Secondly, it's extremely exciting. And if we do it right, we're giving student tours and incorporating shop classes and trades and tech ed, and it's something that generates a lot of positive experiences for students as well. So this is not just a building happening and no collaboration. It's collaboration. It's exciting. It's a lot of hype and a lot of good news. Draws a lot of attention to the programs that you're doing from a curricular perspective.
The other thing is by building where the soccer fields are right now and not by where the parking lots are. Obviously, there's some parking over there on the northwest portion of the building, but not a ton. It's not super disruptive in terms of the flow. Obviously, we know that there are already problems with how pickup and drop off works currently and queuing, etc. But that should be able to relatively remain, intact during construction of the building. Obviously, when we get to the site work piece, which will follow the building, that will require some very carefully curated logistics to make the site work. But hopefully it is a short-term pain for a long-term pain.
And lastly, I have to add this too. Let's not forget that there are a lot of school districts all over the country, especially in the state of Wisconsin. We're working on dozens right now that are renovating their current facilities right now. Students walking around hallways with open ceilings. This is not the option that we're looking at here. So students will be walking into spaces that are finished, complete, and not exposed to fire alarm, temporary outages, or open ceilings, or dust, or what have you. This is a brand new building, completely separate. And that, we just walked through Nicolay High School, a project we're doing 3 weeks ago as a group, and it's wild. I mean, open ceilings everywhere. It's just a completely different experience.
My son teaches at Madison, that dropped a left school and school about a year ago, and it was unbelievable. The wires are hanging down.
Yeah.
Ceilings are open. There's no floors. It's down to the concrete gaps, huge gaps down at the bottom of walls. It's pretty wild. Kids are just going to school like that.
So how does it work when we've got the two buildings and students are still in them and this is being built? And we talked about salvaging some of the things that we had invested money in lately. I think Jeff had mentioned something in one of our meetings. Was it the? Yeah. So how does that work if you've got students in the buildings and they're still being taught, taking those units and putting them on a
Timing.
Summertime, the switch gear that we talked about, purpose, some of the boilers that were just like repurpose, summertime. Students are here.
The summer blitz, we do it all the time. I would say we do it. TM firms do it, and it's hot and heavy, June, July, and August. A lot of work happening in summers and schools all over.
What's the timeline look like for demolition of the two?
Gonna be about 3 months. I think definitely we have to about public.
Would there be any appetite to keeping south and selling or renting south? Maybe we look at that as a potential backup option.
We have to have a plan for those athletic fields, so.
That's the only, that's what I'm getting at, is we should maybe look at what that layout would look like if we kept south, sold it or rented it.
Would we have to fix it though?
Not necessarily.
All of the things.
Sell it as is.
You're talking about selling?
I mean,
Oh,
everything's on the
okay.
table.
It's probably a matter of space and allocation of
Yeah, I
everything
think
into space.
from a parking standpoint, like we mentioned, you're net gaining like 800 spots. So, you'd be losing the some added parking. We have to validate exactly how much. And then those two lacrosse skills.
That's what I'm thinking is, it's gonna be a 2-3 year building process, right?
Yeah.
Put the building up for sale, see what happens in 2 years. If we don't get any biters, then we demo it. If we do, maybe there's a backup option.
That timeline, that's a good idea. The timeline would be a little bit tighter than that, though. We would need to know really if the referendum passes, we would need to know this by the summer, because we're issuing construction documents shortly thereafter for construction. That needs to be made by that time.
How much of a savings would it be if we didn't demo some campus?
So I think
How much
you
would
were,
you save?
you were carrying, well, 3 million and 2.3 million. So, and what respectively for the demolition of that. So. But I think there's a trade-off that would have to be looked into, that maybe for doing a multi-purpose sort of turf field to accommodate lacrosse, soccer, sports, we could keep yourself and self out. There's got to be some trade-off. There's stormwater management also allocated down to that.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about stormwater, because the stormwater is assuming the 2 buildings are gone.
Right.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't know what the board thinks about having a backup option in the event that potentially would want to. I think it would be our duty to at least list it for taxpayer
purposes and showing our constituents that we're trying to save some money here. Plus, I mean, there's some value in this building.
Do we know how it's zoned, or would it potentially have to change in zoning to
It would have to
make it
change,
saleable?
yeah. They'd have to do a certified survey map, parcel off that as a separate property. It'd be a process.
Keeping the timeline to November, yes, on the referendum till when that happens.
I think our recommendation would be if the referendum passes this November and it's a serious consideration to try and sell South Campus, then that decision should be made pretty quickly after November. And then test the waters for say 6-9 months, but then a final decision needs to be made really by end of summer. There are maneuvers if
Yeah, can you back into that timeline for us just so we understand the why behind urgency there?
yeah,
And not now, just follow up with the detail.
It would also be nice to know what we'd be talking about if we decided, if we wanted to sell this building. What does that mean in real dollars?
Yeah, we could
What
get
is
some,
the value? of
that would
selling?
be a real estate agent.
yeah, we could get some brokers involved.
It's not our
Probably
department.
tough, but
See it as a K-8 or something.
I said,
Find some feeder
Elbrook had
schools.
a building that's been sold for years, but eventually it's
How many square feet is that?
It's like 200. Yeah, I think it's 220. 220. Sorry,
That's central office.
220 and 265 for the total storage.
There's Meadowview on the Pond Block. Their plan was to sell that and that thing just sat out there forever.
the school.
I think they got at least space. This one's nicer than either of those two buildings, but still,
Well,
like you get one purpose. Yeah.
Their issue is environmental, and they're not willing to sell it to anything besides. They have a lot of restrictions on that property.
On what they're gonna sell.
Yeah, so is that all the school that we sell it to?
Yeah, they won't sell it to any competing schools,
Private or
private or public.
Oh,
And there's major,
It's not a good building.
well, the billing's not good, but you can't even use it for, there's a lot of issues. So I think this is a little bit different.
I think your idea is a good one.
Mhm.
I think it's something we should explore.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking about, moving forward.
Complicates things.
It certainly does. But potentially we could, have a meeting and, try and pull in some realtors and people that could advise, and we could know a little bit more about what it is we're talking about in the first place, so.
If we did keep it, considering like all the things that are going on in it, we sold it, right? But then whoever buys it does become perhaps a feeder school or something of that nature. They're gonna go to referendum because they need the money to fix the building or whatever, because they're not getting enough funding. So that would be, I mean, I don't know if that's potential, but because then that wouldn't work in our favor, but I don't know. I think.
Yeah, I think it's good to have more information.
Anything else on the site plan? All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll talk more about this. Figure out the best way to handle it. Okay, gosh, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was
Bye.
really-
Thank you.
Really interesting. Next up is the superintendent's report. Now, turn it over to Superintendent Farmer.
Thank you. This evening, I'd like to start my report reading a letter I received at the end of July. Dear Superintendent Farner of Arrowhead Union High School District, I'm pleased to write this letter congratulating Arrowhead Union High School for being the recipients of the Dave and Mary Sterning Classic 8 Conference Sportsmanship Award for this past school year for the sports of girls golf, girls volleyball, girls basketball, boys golf, and girls lacrosse. This award is presented each season in each sport offering based on rankings submitted by the member schools' head coaches in their specific sport. I know Ryan Mangan and his entire staff has continued to put sportsmanship in the forefront of everything their teams do, and it shows. as they are honored by their Class of 8 conference schools with these recognitions. Congratulations to everyone involved, and hopefully there will be many more sportsmanship honors to come. Sincerely, Todd Sobrilski, CMAA Class of 8 Conference Commissioner. So I wanted to just publicly acknowledge and recognize those coaches of those sports. Ryan Andrews is the coach of both girls and boys golf. Janelle Jaquish is our girls volleyball coach. Ron Reichley is the girls basketball coach. And Sarah Tusher is the girls lacrosse head coach. So I do want to commend them publicly. Thank them.
Yeah.
From where I sit, I consider that an honor as important as winning a conference or state championship. That's what we're trying to inspire in our student athletes. So hats off to them, and I'll extend a letter of congratulations and thanks to each of those head coaches. Second part of my report tonight is Principal Kurtz doing an update on the cell phone policy that he did to the committee meeting last week, whenever that last meeting was. But they asked him to come to the full board so that all the board members could hear his update on how the cell phone policy has been going.
Just a quick update. We gave some updates throughout the year. I would say a positive first year of implementation of a tighter expectation of our staff. The data that we have, we had last year, we had 70 tech violations throughout our entire year, and up till May of this year, we had 160. So 2.5 times as many. I think our staff are enforcing it. What we saw was our south building we had a higher frequency. We expect that with and as our students the north building, our juniors and seniors typically were very responsible with their use and followed our expectations. We did see a little bit of the spring slide where behaviors get a little apathetic and teachers focus more on the learning, getting students ready for AP exams. So that's a piece that we know that we can work on in that kind of April-May period of making sure that we hold the line pretty tight. But our fall, we cleaned it up pretty well. We had conversations with probably half a dozen teachers individually, just who wanted to bend the line a little bit, I'd say, in terms of an interpretation, but they were all very good. All but a few were able to remedy expectations placed on themselves. It's at the top of our list for expectations. The second year is a little bit few questions.
So for the few that weren't able to remedy, is there a revised expectation for them, or what's your approach?
Yeah, like any personnel issue, we have a conversation. If they don't remedy it, then it becomes a little more formal and we keep moving up the ladder. And that's what they mean, the expectation of our staff. Most of our staff respond to this conversation. Do you guys think there would be value in another survey a year down the road, once this has been implemented for a full year, just seeing how the staff responds differently based on what you guys have been doing? I'd be curious to know if their opinions are the same, because it was pretty negative prior. I'm wondering if the sentiment might change now based on more. Yeah, yes, I think there is value in that. There's always value in checking points with our staff, right? And I think you would see a difference. I don't think, we talked to our staff, I don't think they had processed through the value that it is to some of the classrooms. When they surveyed, I think it was like 82% said get them banned, right? It was a really heavy percentage. And as we had conversations with our staff, they realized how much they use our world language, especially to record, and our students upload from their phones. A lot of their recordings are arts classes. I'll take pictures and stuff. I watch our science students take pictures of their steps in their labs so that they get uploaded to Canvas. Teachers can check it. So I think as they process, they're appreciating the flexibility of it. But then it's one of those things where if every teacher does it, 120 teachers hold that expectation, it's easy. Right? It's when you have a dozen or 2 dozen who are a little looser, where somebody walks into Mr. Bolt's class and says, "Hey, Curse, let me use my phone in his class. Why can't I use it in yours?" Right? So those are the pieces that we hope we get cleaner this year. And once everybody holds that same expectation, it's not even a question. We have to ban them because it's not being used. And the same students who are going to try to use them with a ban are going to use them, right? There's going to be a 5% of our student body who's going to want to use it. we can always check in with other staff. I don't think that's a bad point to bring up.
Would you, change the survey questions in any way this time around?
So it was an easy survey.
Yeah, it was
2 questions,
only
right?
simple.
It's, do you want
Yeah,
to, and I think it was
yes or
pretty
no,
obvious and
A lot of comments.
a lot of
a
comments,
lot of comments,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, we could send that very same one. That way at least you have some integrity to the data too.
Well, and the reality is that we really changed nothing as far as formal policy is concerned, we just created a strong emphasis on what
Yep.
existed.
Yeah, we always had a no cell phone in the classroom policy, but we just never enforced it.
Well, I guess I'll leave it up to you guys to send that out whenever you guys think the right timing for that is.
Yeah, we have some. The board agrees, let's have to plug it in and just say, hey, if you would like.
If you send it out again, it might not be a good idea to ask if you think that they want it banned, because I don't think that's our priority right now anyway, or that's not what I think the board wants. You know, maybe just a check-in on what you think, I don't know, however you want to, word
I can
the
always bring in
questions.
a couple questions back to one of the committees, policy or whatever is best.
Thanks.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, we are at public comment portion of the meeting. Didn't assign us. Was there anyone here that wanted to make a public comment despite not signing up on the clipboard? Yeah. Hi.
I'll make a comment. Dan Benishek, my daughter is a freshman and a sophomore here at Arrowhead. First, I wanted to say thank you very much for all the work on the referendum. A lot of voters are really curious as to how we're going to communicate all this information to over 20,000 voters in the Arrowhead School District. Many of them do not have a relationship with the school and are going to be convinced that this is a very important thing. The second thing I wanted to mention was very glad to see that the controversial issues is being discussed again tonight. That was a policy that was passed in June that if you take a look at all the data, all the research, only one school district in the top 25 schools in Wisconsin are as restrictive as Arrowhead in June with that policy. So I'm very glad to see that it's being reassessed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Benishek. Okay, we will move on to our consent agenda. This evening's consent agenda includes the following: the July 10th regular board meeting, the July 10th special school board meeting, the bill payments report, the donations list, and the personnel report. So I'm wondering if Member Angeli would do us the favor of recognizing our donations this evening.
Yes, absolutely. Excuse me. June of this year, we received an amazing donation. The donor, Mark G. Sellers Entrepreneurial Foundation Incorporated, made a $20,000 donation to the Technology and Engineering Partnership Program, which is just unbelievable. So thank you very much to Mark G. Sellers.
Can I add a little context to that?
Please.
So this is the third year that Mark G. Sellers has committed and gave us $20,000 toward this program. So they're up to $60,000 right now. They have 2 more years that they've committed to. So we're anticipating another 20 for the next 2 years. With that, we've committed to going out, soliciting, and finding donations to match that. So we have matching donations up to and above and beyond 20,000 actually, but we had to get the $20,000 to be able to get this 20,000. So our tech ed folks have done a great job pounding the pavement, working with businesses to partner with them, and so we're probably seeing closer to $25,000 to $30,000 a year in matching commitments to this 20,000. So it's just a great program. We are in year 3 of it now.
Have they made any stipulations, any guidelines or anything that for that donation. It's to be used for anything in particular.
It's to be used for tech
I mean,
equipment. So it's
specific
very expensive to
equipment.
operate or purchase that type of equipment. All those machines are over $100,000 a piece. So that's what the funds are used for, is to purchase equipment for those programs.
So are the matching donations, are those also reflected in past donations?
Yep. So
Okay,
you see them
but you just don't know that it's.
Yes,
Often,
Okay.
you know,
right.
5,000 here or
Oh,
2,000
yeah.
there.
Yeah,
So they're
very
we've
nice.
seen a lot there. So we've seen a lot of those donations. We've seen a lot of tennis court
Yeah.
donations. Some scholarship donations that come in for special needs students and tech ed students. So those are major ones going on right now. But yeah, this is an awesome thing. for the district.
I would say.
For our program.
Yeah, a big thank you to the foundation, to all the donors. A big thank you to our tech ed department. Those guys they're pounding the pavement and they do an awesome job of bringing recognition, I think, to our tech ed department as well. It's just a great school, private sector, companionship. Works well. So kudos. Was there anything on the consent agenda that board members wish to select out for any additional discussion?
I did have a question about the special board meeting minutes. I was curious, did we have counsel, legal counsel? Okay.
Anything else? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve
I'll
the
make a
consent
motion to
agenda.
approve.
Any further discussion on the consent agenda? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. I see no committee reports for curriculum, F&L, those two in particular.
Yeah, we didn't have any hot topics for it last month, so we decided to skip that. And we do have a meeting coming up on August 22nd at 6:45, and there's a lot on there, so I'd appreciate it if people would show up bright and early and we can go through those.
There's coffee here.
You told me that. I will have items on that. You have one on that, right?
Yeah, you have there's the graduation date presentation, the citizenship initiative.
And then we get right out to wings right after that. So
Yes, yeah,
I'll
you're
get-
first.
Sue's out on vacation. She turned 30 and took a vacation. But I'll get those presentations late, and then if people want to just do those ahead of time, so that maybe
Sure,
that's like that
sure, yeah.
conversation. Just like any questions you have on any of that would be good to have.
Okay, Sue did mention about you getting out early for
Yeah,
wings, so that's,
So we'll get that, those presentations.
thanks so much.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well,
Okay,
we'll look forward to the 22nd.
sure, thanks.
Anything from F&L?
No updates. We'll definitely be in need of a meeting on September though. Kind of start to build for that, but we haven't needed to up until now.
Very good. Thank you. We'll move on then to Member Beneker with Building and Grounds Report.
Yeah, we had a meeting last week and I thought it was a very good meeting. I really applaud Bill showcasing a lot of the things that he did at his former employer. When you hear the investments, when he says ROI or break even after so many months, that's really, encouraging from a number standpoint to see, there's some stuff that is maybe a little bit of a heavy investment, but just doing that analysis, making sure we're getting the biggest bang for our buck there. So I applaud him and Jeff with that. Some highlights from the meeting included what you saw here with EUA. I'm sharing they started the first part of the meeting, just showing where the proposed new building would be at. And then Bill gave some highlights about the boiler, and that's what Amy alluded to, like, okay, the referendum passes, we would be able to salvage that and put that into the new building. If and when the referendum. Other things that Bill mentioned too, which was quite interesting, was he was just saying of how they're utilizing technology to make the maintenance, cleaning the rooms more efficient, where basically the clean staff, they jump in if I'm speaking out there, but they go in, they punch in their QR code or click on the QR code. It shows the task of what needs to be done in that room. And, you know, it lays it all out there for them. And then they have to click on the QR code to exit out. So he has all that data of like the amount of time that is spent on each of these rooms. Be able to customize wish lists for each of those rooms, because versus probably prior to that, it was just paper and pencil or shoot an email on each one, but making things more efficient. And he said this is something that they used in South Milwaukee. It was an investment of like 6 or 8 grand. I think 8 grand for the first year, but 6 grand the year after. But he just said in terms of efficiency, staffing, it really pays off on that. So I was very impressed by that. He also talked about there was a clean, not a sweeper, but scrubber, a robotic scrubber that will be that they're implementing, where it will basically just, it has like the GPS, you know, you can kind of tell it's like, okay, just do common areas or do each individual classroom. It was one of those things that with the investment, I think he said the break-even point was basically a year or 15 months.
Yeah, just under a year.
Or under a year.
And that was pretty conservative, so, you know, maybe less than that, but we didn't want to overinflate anything, so figured 3.5 hours a night that thing is run. We only use the school days, which we know we'll use it more than 180 days a year. But so just for those calculations, you know, just under a year for the payback, and it'll probably be better than that.
So those were some of the things. Received confirmation with the football scoreboard that all systems go for the kickoff of the football season. So we'll be receiving, which is with the scoreboard, just to emphasize with people in the community, this is a good, it's a good investment, and it's one of those things that with the sponsorships that we're selling, I think we said like probably after 4 or 5 years, we will basically cover the cost of that scoreboard. In the remainder of the time will be just profit for us, which we would anticipate probably in the ballpark of 10 years, because I think that was the life of the other school.
Right. Is that correct? Yeah. So we'll save up any retained funding that we raise, save up for a future replacement if needed. You know?
Oh, that's fair. So that's gonna go in a special fund, some kind of.
It'll stay in the general fund, but segregated.
Okay, that's cool.
Fund balance, yeah.
Awesome.
Is there anything else? Oh, I'm sorry. We were talking about the maintenance bill, where we did. I think it went out to 12 firms. We only received 2 or 3 bids. 2 back. It is a lot higher than what we anticipated. So I think in the next buildings and grounds meeting, maybe kind of dissect that a little bit more and talk about options.
What accounts for that low return rate, Jeff?
I don't know. I mean,
Usually these companies don't need work.
Are they just that busy
Or
right
they're
now?
that-
It's just a guess.
it was a design build project, steel building. The one company that specializes in that put a bid in, a higher bid. BGS, who we're working with on this other project, put a bid in. They were the lower bid, and the other companies apparently they didn't need the work, or they don't specialize in that design build process. But it was, we sent it to the EOA who drew up the drawings for it, had a list of like 6 or 7 different companies, and Bill and I came up with another 5 to just trying to get the best price. So we got.
And unfortunately, it's double of what we anticipated.
Yeah,
that's where we
came in at 2.3 million. And again, that $1 million was just kind of throwing a dart at the wall. So it's reasonable when you consider the building we're comparing it to is what Town of Oconomowoc put up a couple of years ago. And I think they spent about 2.2 million on that. And that was probably 5 or 6 years ago already. So theirs is slightly bigger than ours, what we're looking at. But cost of construction has gone up, and so you didn't have ballpark.
Any idea how the meeting went with the field striper people?
I have not heard. Is he demoing it that day?
He was going to be, I think, like a few days after
Yeah,
the meeting.
I haven't touched base with him on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's an
Rented.
robotic field marker. So once you lay out the field the first time, you can save a lot of layer of paper, punch in the code, it'll mark the field. So Bill's done a nice job implementing technology to save labor.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
So yeah, and then we are looking at our next future agenda items. I know it was brought up to the discussion of the solar panel space. If they were referendum passed. So next meeting will be September 5th, which is a Thursday.
I just got a question. Why is it the maintenance building there? What is so special? Why would
Yeah, we had dollars set aside out of the last referendum to pay for that. So we allocated $1 million out of that money to go toward this project. Now, there's funds available in that, but we would be taking away for some parking lot funds that may end up in this next referendum. This is also, so that's why we kind of put a hold on it for now anyway, until we see what happens on November 5th, and then we'll have some decisions to make.
It's a really good question.
Yeah.
So if we back off on some of the other projects planned, like parking lots and some of the HVAC unit repairs, there will be the funds to take care of the maintenance facility for the old referendum, the past referendum, 2020. And,
Oh, I get it. Okay, great. Thank you. I was like, oh, but that makes sense.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
And as soon as we get a yes vote
There we
in
go.
November.
Yeah.
So if we don't, then we'll just go back to the drawing board and come up with plan B.
Okay, that's good. Thank you for that insight. Okay, thank you so much, Member Benneker. So I'm going to move on to Personnel Committee and try and stumble my way through what Member Langer would do. Yes, if we can take a look at the report from the personnel minutes, if you wouldn't mind, Conrad, that'd be great.
Really, the minutes are just going to cover what I'm about to talk about next, so I'll go through very, very quickly as far as reviewing the administrative contracts, having that conversation about getting those updated before getting approved. So it's really that simple. I don't know if people need to see the proposed changes in the contracts, but those were reviewed at the committee level. Almost all of them were there that day. And really not anything substantive with these changes. It's just similar to what we had to do to the teacher employment contracts, the summer school contracts by going to a new handbook. There was language in those old contracts that just was irrelevant, didn't work anymore. Our contracts are also much longer and I would almost use the word laborious to deal with compared to contracts I've used in the past. So I did want to streamline them, get them more consistent so that superintendent contract and the administrative contracts are much more similar. They're never identical, but at least this way you'll see a similar format, similar structure, paragraphing, and that sort of thing. It makes it more efficient when we're having conversations and we're checking on what are the different benefits that are maintained in this contract. So the action before you tonight would be to approve the contracts, the changes in the contract. So then you can approve actually issuing the contracts as the next order. Those would be for 25 to 27. So the administrators currently are on the last year of their current contract. We'll just give them a 2-year contract at the end of this year. This time is a little unusual because I was new to the district. I wasn't comfortable after 6 months recommending contracts at the normal time frame. So this will probably be the only time it's done this way. We'll revert back to doing it both the year, which is a normal way that most districts handle it. It's our statutory time. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for updating around that. So at this time, I'm looking for a motion to approve those recommended changes to the administrator contracts. We had contemplated 2 ways of dealing with this. And again, this is where I'm a little bit at a loss. During committee, we had discussed breaking out those administrator contracts that were the administrative team, minus the superintendent contract. And tabling that for the moment, and potentially, as we come out of closed session this evening, back into open session, entertaining a motion to approve that contract at that point. So it would be postponed till later in the evening.
Right. The first action would approve the changes.
Changes.
To both
Yes,
admin and superintendent. So
sure,
that's the first action item. And
sure.
then the second, approving the admin team's contracts, it's a standalone.
Standalone.
Mine would be after the closed session. Exactly.
Understood. So at this point, I just want to make sure that we kind of follow what I think we had understood coming out of committee, that was procedurally what we were looking for. Nonetheless, the language changes to the contract remain something that we need a motion for at this point. So I'm looking for the motion to approve the recommended changes to the administration contract.
I would make a motion
I'll
to
second.
approve those changes.
Second.
Is there any further discussion around that? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. So secondarily, I'm looking for a motion to approve the administrator contracts.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion here? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Okay, on to policy with Chairman Ferris.
Thank you, Madam President. We had a very robust meeting, a lot accomplished on August 6th. We started out by talking about the recommended changes to the 24-25 Parent Athlete and Co-Curricular Code of Conduct Handbook. We're going to have a time for a discussion and action tonight. So if there are any questions by board members that were or weren't at the meeting, we can discuss those then. Adam talked a little bit about the student handbook and along with Conrad and how those were revised to be in line with Neola. So there's some revisions there again. That's going to have discussion and action tonight as well. We reviewed technical corrections to the discipline by Adam Bolt, which were understood well. And if there's any questions, we can discuss that tonight. That's also a discussion and action piece. Adam Kurth also talked about the personal communication devices, which he did again tonight for all the full board, so we all understood where that stood. So we got a little bit of a repeat of that tonight for everyone. Then we, let's see, Conrad talked a little bit about the Policy 5000 series, administrative guidelines, which are reviewed now and ready to be activated.
Today we got the email just this morning, this afternoon, that Richard said they're up on Neola. So first set of official 5000 series guidelines are online.
Cool.
Needed those for the start of school.
Perfect. We re-reviewed Policy 2240, controversial issues in the classroom. This was brought up by a board member to have this as a little bit more of a robust discussion, to kind of dive into this a little bit more. This is going to end up becoming a little bit more of a focus area, if I understood correctly, by Adam Kurth and his team as the year starts, and to kind of have a little bit of emphasis on this for teachers to understand that, hey, yes, you're able to share personal thoughts on things, but also to, emphasize the idea of students even maybe opposing those things, and almost a debate type of ability for those students to feel empowered to take any stance that they wish, so that there's a real robust ability to have a dialogue without the fear of a grade or a concern with the interaction with the teacher. I think that was where we were originally with this policy, speaking independently as a single board member. That was my concern originally when we enacted this policy, that there is an ability for students to be able to voice their opinion without the fear of retribution. So I think that's going to be a renewed focus by the admin team for the upcoming school year. That is also up for discussion and action tonight, so we can ask any questions about that if I did not say that completely correctly. The next piece, 2264, non-discrimination on the basis of sex education and programs and activities. This is a continued legal challenge throughout the country that as a board, as a committee, we have decided to table and to just put it on pause until a time where there's more decisive delineation legally on what's happening with this in the country. So at this point, we are not doing anything with this. And if there are questions by the board, I would entertain that, even though that's not a discussion and action piece. And then let's see. And then we talked about some ideas for a future, some future policy meetings, a future policy meeting, which the next one is September 3rd. If there's any questions by the board, I would entertain those, and otherwise I'll turn it over to our president to go down the list of discussion and action pieces.
Thank you so much. Any other discussion on what member Harrison's? If not, at this point, I'm looking for a motion to approve the 24-25 Parent Athlete Co-Curricular Code of Conduct Handbook as presented.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Hey, Chris, I did have a question on the future date of September 3rd. Now, that's the first day of school, right? I was just curious. I didn't know if that causes any disruption of having a committee meeting first day of school. For
Yeah, we can.
administrative
Can we move it?
I'm happy to shift it. I mean, it's fine with me. That's really, what does admin say about that?
I don't, yeah, I have that on my. Yeah, it's first day.
Yeah, yeah, let's shift that. Maybe the following Tuesday. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. Yeah.
Be alert.
If that's okay with everyone.
Yeah.
Better than the first day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Smart. And then that like.
I mean, I feel like I'll be here anyway.
From Monday to Monday.
Yeah. Thanks, Daryl. I appreciate it.
Dad of the year.
Yeah.
My kids have a good shit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, moving along then, I'm entertaining a motion to approve the 24-25 student handbook.
I'll make a motion to approve the handbook.
I'll second.
Any further discussion here? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries again. Next up is relative to policy 5610.02. I'd like a motion to approve the technical correction to policy 5610.2 in school discipline.
Can we review that just one more time in case that we're not in the policy meeting? Just know, like, I know that there was just minor changes, but I just want to make sure that we're all good, of course, but for some reason, comes up like, there you go. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, this was a really minor change after the administration, the building administrators were able to think about this and talk about it and preparing for the school year. They recognize that there's situations that come up where you might have an issue with a couple students right at the end of the day. And if a student threatens another student and they're both about to get on the same bus, you're not going to put those two kids on that bus. And so with this language, didn't provide the flexibility for the administration, some discretion, make sure that they're making decisions to keep students safe. This language was intended to make sure kids aren't held without parents knowing. We always make sure the parents know. We would get in touch with the parents as fast as humanly possible anytime a situation like this would be going on. But we didn't want our building administrators be in a situation where they would make a decision in the interest of student safety that would actually violate policy language. That's not good language to have it like that. So all this does is give them the flexibility to do what they've always been doing, which is use some common sense and handle the situation so our students are safe. And this doesn't happen much.
That, I'll make a motion. Policy 53.2 in school discipline as presented. Thank you very
I'll
much.
second it.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion carries as well. Next up is controversial issues in the classroom. Motion to approve the recommended changes to policy 2240, controversial issues in the classroom.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on this?
I just wanted to thank the committee and my fellow board members that they were willing to revisit this after I had concerns, and I think other people did too. And I know some in the public did from an email we received. And it just didn't sit right with me at the time. And at least we reviewed it, discussed it in detail, and we decided to go with the other option. So I'm glad that happened, and thank you.
No, we appreciate you bringing it forth. And I think it was a very thoughtful thing, and the discussion around it was thoughtful. So thank you so much. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Other reports. WASB. I will open this up to member Angeli as well, as we both did attend the summer symposium in Green Bay that WASB offered. It was very AI based, interestingly. And so I thank our chairperson for working with Sue Cassetta and bringing forward the discussion that we had kind of recently around AI to kind of see how that discussion lined up with some of the things that were brought forward at the meeting. And so I don't know if you have things immediately you want to offer. Do you want to frame things in?
The only thing that did pop into my mind as I'm driving over, I did want to make sure to mention the one little nugget that one board member had mentioned to us, and that was her writing thank you notes to people, personal notes such as like donors. Yes, do you recall that discussion?
Yeah. Yes.
And I thought that was a great idea. It's a small thing, but I think it is, especially for a donor who's donating $20,000. I think that's a small thing that we could do to say, hey, that's amazing. And I would absolutely be willing to take that on if that is something of value.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So obviously AI wasn't the only topic of this.
Yes, I mean, that was
they did
just
have
anecdotal,
some
Usually
just
use
chat.
AI to write those letters.
Well, maybe they do.
I won't write it myself.
Did he send something
I will
for
use spell check.
donations? I thought we did.
And
Yeah,
we
every
send-
time there's one approved at the board table, the next day the letter goes out. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it's a school thing. It's not a board thing per
But,
se.
yeah, but I
So,
would
yeah.
be glad on behalf of the board, if that is appropriate, just to say thank you, because
I don't see why you have to.
a thank you goes a long way. You could turn it around upside down. Just saying. I just thought, I mean, that's the least that we can do to some
Right.
folks who do some amazing things for our school, so.
So we would send a thank you from the district and then also thank you from the board. Is that the?
I'll continue to send one from the district.
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Cool.
Glenn has a little bit of tax legal language.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh nice.
Thank you for supporting
And
us.
you can
by
have
the way,
that.
Here's
Yeah.
tax language.
You don't send them that one, they actually ask for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. It's cool.
thank you for volunteering for that. Absolutely. That would be great. Someday we can sync that up. I will have no tax legal language in mind, so
You're covered.
that's on you. Yeah. Right. But I would be glad to do that because I think that would be
So there were some breakout sessions, obviously,
Mhm.
that addressed some other issues. There was one, for instance, on I think it was Oregon School District that does podcasting. Kind of an
Oh, yeah.
interesting discussion. They decided that a few folks from the administration would, on a monthly basis, put out a podcast as a way for them to communicate and inform. And
So you have nothing going on.
yeah, right. But it, you know, it is an interesting kind of an interesting concept. The bottom line with some of the AI, from my perspective, they talked a fair amount about ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude. They brought up Khan Academy as kind of a great one-to-one tutoring source. They addressed legal around AI at this point it's such a broad topic, and it's a brave new world, I think, and so there have not been a lot of legal definitions around things. There's not been a lot of policy developments around this, and in fact, the take-home message from some of the folks that were presenting was that in general, policy was not advisable from their perspective. They thought perhaps guidelines were more in order. They did strongly suggest that we get out ahead of the curve and try and stay on top of this. And so I think kind of a continuous discussion through curriculum would be important because there's a lot in the pike. Fascinating stuff. Just have to make sure that it's used appropriately. I think the only one that they suggested, really potentially engaging in policy around was something around academic dishonesty, something there, and determining, what would work for our school moving forward. So it was an interesting symposium, and we jointly appreciate the district allowing us to attend.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Other than that, Member Benneker, do you have anything on CISA?
Nope.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
Okay, under new business, I would like to, at this point, turn the floor over to Member Evers for some comments.
Sure. Thank you, Madam President. So I'm using this time to address the board as well as the administration and community that effective at the close of this meeting, I must resign from my position on the board. And we just had a great welcome right at the very beginning. It's a bit bittersweet.
Lindsay, what did you say? I don't know.
It's, I guess, since very early summer, I was presented an opportunity to take a new challenge, move outside of state. So this discussion is actually much more difficult than when I had it with my employer for 21 years. So I'm leaving my previous employer, and the family and I are moving out of state. The board, the school, the community certainly weighted very heavy in our decision whether or not to take the new challenge. But ultimately, we decided let's do it. Very few opportunities in a lifetime to go start something new. We felt that it was at the right time. My son, who would have been a sophomore at Arrowhead this year, is not very happy. He's not in agreement that it's the right time, but he's dealing with the change pretty well. Obviously, one of my pet peeves is not finishing something I start, but another pet peeve of mine is walking away from a challenge and a new opportunity. So I had to weigh those. So I would ask that you could give me your understanding and forgiveness for those that believe I am walking away. I am truly kind of disappointed in myself for this, but also would like your understanding as the family and I move on to a new life. Just anecdotally, when my my family and I started looking at the new community, which community we're going to live in. We're moving to the Indianapolis area, just for reference. So really not that far away, but moving to Indianapolis. So we started looking at schools. My time on the board here, I think, teed me up to understand how to research what school and district we're going to live in. So as interviewing the administration, interviewing board members, interviewing all kinds of people on whether or not we're going to settle and make roots in a new community, we really were surprised at the level of questions that were coming from me to make that determination. And I will say, without sugarcoating it at all, hands down, this administration here, you're top notch compared to every school that we interviewed. No comparison. The school we're moving to wouldn't even come up to your belly button in ranks of how well you guys are. So my hat's off to you. Keep doing that. We're taking a step backwards where we're moving just based off of administration. So thank you very much. The other thing, curriculum that we have found, the only school that would go toe to toe with Arrowhead's curriculum was a school in Carmel. It's on the north side of Indy. They have 7,000 students. Their curriculum is amazing. But that's the only school that would have. Yeah, it's like a college. It's like a college campus. And they have their own radio station. They have their own, you name it. They are
Something in the water there. Yeah. What's going on?
It's an amazing district. But if my son was going to be a freshman, we would have probably gone there. But coming in as a sophomore, I thought he would have been completely overwhelmed and lost. And ultimately, we decided not to go there. But still, we landed at the number 1 to number 2 school within the greater Indy metro area. And even their curriculum and course offerings are nowhere close to what Arrowhead has to offer. Probably 25% of the electives in comparison to what Arrowhead has. The engineering program, the tech ed program, the different levels of what you can do with the history classes or the business classes, significantly greater scale here at Arrowhead than what we discovered throughout all around the Indianapolis metro area. That said, every school that we went to, their facilities were phenomenal, just phenomenal facilities. So a lot of my question was around, all right, you guys have these great facilities, your curriculum that we're leaving, like we're taking a step back. What are you guys doing from a planning standpoint? They actually have a math model that for every new student, for every 100 new students, they begin to add more electives in. So they are actively campaigning to get people to move into their districts so that they can grow their curriculum because they have the facilities. And like us, they're fixed on budget. You can only teach what you have budget for. So they are actively recruiting students. So for every new 100 students, they add a couple more electives, and they focus on adding those electives. So they have a target and a plan to get to where Arrowhead is today, but they're not there yet. So kind of that message is, and we've heard it in community member feedback related to the referendum, that facilities don't teach students. It's true, they don't, but facilities get students in the door so that you can grow, so that you can keep your curriculum. So really, community needs to really take that at heart. My fear for this school is if we don't have that referendum, our enrollment will continue to go down, and we will lose the curriculum that we have, the amount of electives that we have. So that, to me, was a really big wake-up call related to kind of my data point of 1, but how that relates to what Arrowhead has on its horizon. So with that, obviously, family and I are moving out of state. next week, technically, I'm no longer a community resident, close on our house. That said, our house is not selling to a future student of Arrowhead. They are a retired couple out of Illinois. Every family that toured our house, I was very inquisitive just because I wanted more data as to who was looking at the house. But every family that toured our house that was considering it ultimately ended up choosing Brookfield or Sussex to move into. So it wasn't a house problem, it was a location district problem. So that was another kind of wake up call that we really have to get after what you guys and what we've already put in motion. It's really should be considered a wake up call from, again, my viewpoint. But even though we're moving on, I still have friends, obviously all of you, friends, family. I have nieces and nephews at Arrowhead that I'll continue to be a big fan. Use me. I plan on getting very active again in the community at the board level. We'll decide whether or not if I decide to run for a board seat there again, but at least I'll be attending meetings. But use me as a benchmark. If there's things you want to learn about that school or what they're doing, I'd be very happy to give some time back and share anything that I have learned from another state, another school, another way that they do school finances and how they get taxes. I'd be happy to dig into that as much as possible to share here. So with that, wish everybody health and success, and God bless Warhawks.
Thank you for all you've done for our community, Tim.
We'll miss you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck to you.
Best of luck to you and your family.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, Tim's been, he's a big picture guy. He's been a voice of reason. He's been a voice of passion. And he's been a voice of experience coming here, and your perspective will be missed. So thank you for your service. And anytime you're in town, connect.
Yeah, sure.
Good.
Yeah, do.
So given that, Superintendent Turner and I will be working on, I think we are. But it brought us, member Wood, and we're all happy about that. So
Still filling very large shoes, by the way. So whoever replaces you, Tim, I feel their pain regardless. There's been larger than life. Wonderful people. Thank you so much for your time.
So board, stay tuned to an upcoming interview of a prospective board mate. Are there any other future agenda items that the board would like to bring up and position? Okay. If not, pursuant to state statute 19.851C, the board will move into closed session. I'd like a motion to move into closed.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're in closed session. Thank you, everyone.
It's still light out.
Yeah.
Who made the motion?